Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and happy PURIM. PURIM 2020 was the last time that we gathered together in person, and I know that we're going to be together next PURIM, of course. Tonight, though, we're going to do it as best we can here on YouTube, featuring, after a short service, the world premiere of the Shushan Files, a probing documentary where we'll learn firsthand from the players what happened in Shushan all those years ago. So I hope you'll join us. We've also got some bloopers after that in our closing song. In the meantime, we will be having a shortened regular service, but first a few announcements. Coming up, of course, every Purim we start to think about it because it's only in 4 weeks. Passover Seders around the corner. This year, we will once again be offering our Seder in a box. Sorry to those of you in far-flung places. You have to come to Farmington Hills, Michigan to get those. Look for details in the newsletter. Wherever you live, you can participate, though, through purchase of our Haggadahs. We'll also have them on the screen, of course. You can find those at shj.org and information upcoming in our newsletter, always available to everyone in the world at birminghamtemple.org. And then finally, I want to make a quick hold the date, May 15th. That's a Saturday evening. Our fundraising committee is putting together an incredible, professionally produced trivia night, and I hope you'll join us then. All right, let's get started with our Shabbat candles.
Baruch haor ba'olam, Baruch haor ba'adam, Baruch haor b'shalom, b'shalom, Baruch haor, Baruch haor, b'shabbat.
No Purim is complete without groggers, and though I'm not reading the Megillah tonight, so you won't be able to shake yours and blot out the name of Haman, I wouldn't hear you anyway. I wanted to share them because it reminds me about the old Jewish joke, which says that every Jewish holiday is somehow about the following. They came to kill us, we survived, now let's eat. And Purim is surely about that. But Purim is also unique in the fact that it takes place entirely outside of the land of Israel. And that's where most of Jewish history takes place, including most anti-Semitism. Let's face it, the history of the Jews is replete with suffering, with attempts to do away with us, whether it was in the horrors of the Crusades or the Inquisition, the many pogroms and massacres, the Holocaust, of course. Well, that's just a few. But Purim is also the classic example of using humor, Jewish humor, tradition of our people, to cheer ourselves, to remind ourselves that life is not always suffering and loss. The book of Proverbs rather says that a cheerful heart is good medicine. And it was Kurt Vonnegut, not Jewish, but certainly a great humanist, who once wrote, "Laughter and tears are both responses to frustration and exhaustion. I myself prefer to laugh, since there's less cleaning up to do afterward." Well, after a raucous Purim celebration, there might actually be a lot of cleaning up, but we'll deal with that next year. In the meantime, let's continue with Hine Matov.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, יללי יללי יללי, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, יללי יללי יללי.
Perhaps the single most noticeable and exceptional thing about the book of Esther is that the regular biblical protagonist, God, is completely missing, not even making an appearance. When Haman tried to destroy the Jews, well, they're on their own, just like in real life. Of course, this didn't stop our rabbinical interpreters from trying to find God in the story. There's that famous scene where Mordecai tries to convince Esther to go to the king to help save her people and says to her, if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance may rise for the Jews from another place. People tried to claim that that other place was God. But the book doesn't say that, and it's kind of a stretch. As written, it's totally human-centered. There's no miraculous salvations, no plagues or pillars of cloud or dividing seas. It's just about normal human Jews rising to the occasion to save themselves and their people. It's almost as if they'd heard that song about where their real light, hope, and strength come from. Earlier this week, I recorded this little mini documentary, if you will, about some Megillas and the story itself. Enjoy. Primary religious observance that is associated with Purim is reading from the book of Esther. It's publicly read from a scroll, although you can read it from anything. It's not like the Torah in that you can't. Because it doesn't mention the name of God, it was customary to elaborate on the text with all kinds of beautiful pictures. Here's one dating to sometime in the 16th century. We don't really know the provenance exactly, but here you can see that there are these beautiful flowers that are in between the columns. Over on the right, it begins with actually the benedictions, the brachot and prayers, blessings that are said before the reading. Another very, very old one, and I should mention that both of these come from the British Library, which allows people to go and visit its entire exhibit online. This one is from the 17th century. It has in the margins musical instruments and the names of some people who probably purchased it for a congregation or for their own home, or to whom it was dedicated. We see the names Ber and Shimon and Chaim and Hirsch and Wolf and Nachum. Another interesting feature of this one is that wherever the letters that might spell out the name of God appear, they've been made larger, even though the book doesn't feature God at all. We have the name Yahweh picked out of the text. It's backwards, but you can read it there. And that's not a name that's found in the actual story. What I love about this one is that it's also kind of a comic book because it has these incredible illustrations that have the titles over them almost in a kind of balloon that comic books have. Recently, one of the oldest in the world was donated, I think it may be the oldest, was donated to the National Archives in Israel. This one is probably goes back to the early 15th to 14th century. You can see it's very old and worn, but it is the oldest extant scroll that we have that was probably used in ritual readings for the holiday. So let's talk now a little bit about the story of Purim itself. We have a place in Hamadan, Iran, where there is a mausoleum, a tomb, where Esther and Mordecai are said to have been buried. The tomb was built in the 1600s. It's first attested to in the 11th century by a famous Jewish chronicler, a traveler of repute known as Benjamin of Tudela. He visited there. But of course, it's impossible that there would be a tomb with Esther and Mordecai in it because Esther and Mordecai were not real people. The story of Purim probably dates back no more than 2,400 years. It is a distinctively diaspora tale. It appears to be also a parody that uses the names of certain Babylonian/Persian gods. Mordecai and Marduk would be an example. Esther and the goddess Ishtar. Clearly fictional. There are even those who would argue that the story itself was made up so the Jews could participate in their own Mardi Gras, Carnival, early spring holiday, and indeed that is how it is celebrated today in Tel Aviv and other parts of the Jewish world. Before we move on to the world premiere of the Shushan Files, we do want to, as we do every week, remember those in our community and their loved ones who are ill. Tonight we extend our well wishes to them, to Demi Bird, Julie Eliason, Karen Tremper Harris, Myron Tink, and Rabbi Peter Schweitzer. May they be healed quickly and experience a refuah shlema, complete recovery, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits. We take a moment, as we always do each and every week, to remember those who are no longer with us, to meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own, recalling the yahrzeits of Mary Bridget Maloney, Herman Becker, Michael Berman, Annette Borovitz, Barbara Cohen Mellon, Jenny Fenton, Samuel Foreman, Esther Jacoby, Stanley Leibowitz, Max Luria, Herman H. Schneider, and Abraham Young. Yehi zichram livracha, may their memories provide us with a source of consolation as we go through life in their absence. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the world premiere of The Shushan Files. It was one of the best parties I ever threw. It was the third night. We were having such a good time. We got those little pigs in blankets. But I felt we needed to spice things up a little bit, so I said, Haman, could you please go upstairs and get my beautiful bride Vashti? She prefers to watch her stories than come to my balls. And, well, let's just say that was the beginning of the end of my marriage.
That was something that night. That was after 2 solid nights of more partying. What kind of guy needs so much parties? I knew it was going to be a real disaster when he asked me to go get that queen of his and ask her to come downstairs and dance for him. That's never a good idea. One party after another, 3 nights of this nonsense, and then what happens? He asks me to come down and dance for him. Well, what am I, some kind of trained circus monkey? I have no intention of doing such a thing. She starts throwing things around the room. I'm not going to be with that man anymore. I've had enough of this. And who has to go down and tell him that the wife isn't coming? Well, that, of course, is me. Fine, it's my job. But that is not the kind of thing that I signed on for. Whatever. It was a terrible night. And then he suddenly needed a new queen because she was out the door.
Apparently, Haman went up there, and my ex-wife started to throw things all over the room and refused to come down. The next thing I know, she's calling her lawyer. Well, that cost me a pretty penny, and I need a new wife.
He needs a new queen now. So I says to him, why don't you maybe get a nice dating app or something? There's plenty of ways to meet women these days. And he said, I want to do that when I have a beauty pageant. A beauty pageant. Did you ever hear of such a thing? Well, that meant that I had to go out into the kingdom and gather up all of the women for a beauty pageant. You have any idea how much work that was?
Haman suggested that I start dating. I'm a king. I don't have time for that. Let the women come to me. I said, gather them all up, and I'll pick out a new wife, and that's what I did.
So I first heard about the kerfuffle at the palace with the feast and the divorce. That was big news, made all the papers. And then we all find out there's going to be a beauty contest for a new queen. I says to Esther, I don't know why, but I'm getting some kind of feeling that maybe you should get involved with this project. Well, she didn't really want to do it, and I can certainly understand why, but I did manage to talk her into it, and it was a really good decision on both of our parts, because you see how it turned out. My uncle Mordecai, he told me all about what had happened at the palace, and that they were looking for a new queen. I was completely disinterested, of course, but he told me it was very important for some reason that I participate in this beauty pageant. Have you ever heard such anything so misogynistic? But I did go, and he selected me, and it turned out that that was a very important thing in Jewish history. And of course, who does he select? The Jewish woman, the one who's going to get me in trouble. Oh boy, I wish I'd had nothing to do with the thing.
I found that Shana Purim, her uncle taught me that word. I found that Shana Purim, Esther, and we got wedded.
How did I meet the Jewish guy? That Mordecai, that Yutz? I'm walking through the courtyard like a vizier is supposed to do, greeting everybody, and of course they show me their respect. They get up, they bow, but not this schmo. No, he's sitting there, he's ignoring me, he doesn't want to get up. I'm sitting in the courtyard, it's a lovely day, I'm doing some work, and the next thing I know, this Haman, this vizier, is lording it all over everybody. They're getting up and they're bowing and they're this and they're that. And frankly, I heard the guy was a bit of an anti-Semite. You know, I didn't feel like bowing. It's not a law, you know. You don't have to bow, so I gotta refuse to bow. I think maybe that ticked him off just a little bit.
So Haman comes running into my office. The man is out of breath. He's very angry. Apparently Mordecai, whom I did not know at the time, has not bowed to him like it's such a big deal. Anyway, he says, write me up a decree, king, and please sign this expulsion of all of the schmooze. Or something like that. I don't really remember at the time. I did not realize they were related to Esther.
Later I find out he's related to the woman who becomes the queen. It's a whole big mess for me. I was not happy. I deserve to be bowed to, and I don't wish to discuss it anymore.
I wrote it up. He's a good vizier. He deserves a decree when he asks for one. And, well, it turned out not to be such a good decision.
One day, I'm at that Starbucks in downtown Shushan, a lovely place, by the way, a nice latte they make. And I overhear from another table a couple of schlubs who are planning to do something bad to the king. Well, I'm a good citizen, and also I work at the palace. So we cannot let something like this happen to our king. No, no, no. I go back, I report it to the appropriate authorities, and that's the last I ever heard about it. The next thing I know, there's the parade nonsense coming up.
I often have trouble sleeping, and that particular night I thought, well, if perhaps I can hear the stories of my own heroic exploits.
The king couldn't sleep. Maybe he didn't take his melatonin. I don't know. But he apparently asked for his life story to be read to him, because that's the kind of king he is. And the boy comes in and starts reading it to him.
I get to the part where Mordecai apparently has saved me and nothing was done for him. So I say, Haman, come in here. Haman, come in here. What should be done for a great hero? I guess he thought I was talking about him, but I was not.
The next thing you know, I'm in the room, and King is saying, what should we do for somebody who was so good to me? I think he's talking about me, so I say, a big parade.
He says, have him led in a parade around town with a horse and everything. I went ahead and set that up, and Haman comes in, he's all angry about it. He says, I thought you were talking about me.
The parade was not for me.
I said, no, Haman, go and stand in front of that horse and lead that Mordecai through town. He saved my life.
I wound up having to lead the horse with that Mordecai Jewish fella on the back all the way through town while everybody cheered for him. That was a very unpleasant experience for me, and it made me dislike him even more, if that were even possible, which it wasn't, because I was already at my highest peak of disliking him.
He was not happy.
One morning with my colleagues at the palace, I'm sitting having a cup of coffee, listening to the Varakula gossip, and I hear about Haman and his kaka made me decree to deal, as he says, deal with the Jews. Well, this is something with which I could not put, so I called my cousin / niece Esther. She's married to the king after all, and I said, sweetheart, darling, you gotta do something. You're married to the guy. Come on, let's take some action here.
My Uncle Mordecai told me all about this evil plan that Mr. Haman had put together for the Jews, and he said to me, Esther, you must go speak to the king about it. I was a little nervous to get appointment with the king. Even if you're his wife, it's a big deal. You have to go through a lot of stages to get it. But I did go because I knew that ultimately I had to foil this plan.
It was a little difficult talking her into it, but ultimately she did the right thing. I was very proud of her.
Uncle Mordecai said, if you don't do it, we don't know what's going to happen. So I was brave and I did it.
Out of the blue, Esther came to me and she said, King, I would like to throw a little dinner party for you and Haman. And I thought, what a wonderful idea. She's my wife. He's my colleague. Yes, let's have a lovely dinner party together. I did not know what her other plan was for the party.
I did not come straight out and tell the king, my husband, about Haman's plot. Instead, I thought, well, let's ease him into this. So I said, Your Majesty, my dear husband, please come to a little dinner party that I'm planning for you and Haman. And that turned out to be the venue in which I revealed all of Haman's very, very malicious plans.
It turned out to be very, very interesting, as you all know.
At the dinner party, I suddenly said, Your Majesty, I cannot keep up this charade any longer. I must tell you that Haman has
Esther gets up, she's in tears, and she says, "This Haman wants to hurt me." And then I said, "What are you talking about?" "She says he wants to hurt all the Druids." And I said, "But you don't even look Jewish." And she said, "No, not Druids, Jews."
And he said, because he's really, a really not intelligent man. And I had to break it down for him. And I said, look, he wants to get rid of the Jews, and I am a Jew.
And that's when I realized what had happened with that decree I had signed. I was quite angry at Haman for deceiving me that way.
It was a very, very proud moment in my life to state that so clearly. And he did what was necessary.
I'm not looking forward to what's to come. Well, now you've heard the whole ganze Megillah, and it really made me very, very happy, the ending. My niece, cousin, is doing super well. I like to visit her in that cozy place she lives in. We sit by the fire, we tell the story. I'm still working my tuches off here in the palace. There's always more work to be done. But who could not be happy with such an outcome?
I left the palace. We're separated. We get together occasionally. I like the quiet life, sitting by the fireplace. And, well, it turned out just okay in the end for everyone. We have this lovely holiday and those funny triangular cookies, and everybody makes noise whenever they hear Mr. Haman's name, which just tickles me pink because he was such a yutz.
It didn't turn out so well for our marriage. We kind of separated after that. We're still married. We get together on the holidays and important occasions. I especially like that new holiday, PURIM. I hear it's all about me. Look at this new wardrobe I'm wearing. Orange is the new Haman. That's how it worked out. So now I spend my days in here making license plates. Me and the boys have started a choir about how much we dislike Mordecai. It's a very big group if you want to be honest about it.
I took all that settlement money and I came down here and I have never been happier. I tell you what, he was the worst of all my husbands, and frankly, I hope I never see him again, but I wish him well.
And that's how it went down here in Shushan, starring me, my cousin niece Esther, King Achash, whatever his name is, who can pronounce those Persian names, Queen Vashti, she was a real chimp, and that horrible, horrible man, I'm not even going to say his name, but you know it. So go, have a triangular cookie. We named them Heimentashen after him. Have some prune ones, have some poppy ones, or some of them newfangled ones with the chocolate and other kinds of fillings like jam. Wear a costume, have fun, it's Purim! Good Yontif, everybody, Chag Sameach!
Well, I hope you enjoyed that, just a fraction of how much I enjoyed making it. And I want to thank Arthur for the help he gave me too. We're going to conclude now with Peace Be With You, but do not turn that dial off before you get a chance to see some of the outtakes from the Shushan files directly following our final song. Happy Purim, everybody. Chag Purim Sameach. We will be together next year, and I look forward to seeing you all in the meantime at all of our online programs. Take care.
Peace be with you wherever you go. Peace be with you whatever you do. Peace be with you till we meet again. Peace be with you, my friend. Love be with you wherever you go. Love be with you whatever you do. Love be with you till we meet again. Love be with you, my friend. Join me with you wherever you go. Join me
Mordecai comes in. Not Mordecai, that's wrong. Who turns out to be Esther's uncle, it turns out. I said that twice, so we got to stop that. It turned out to be a terrible idea, as you all know how the story turned out. But at the time, I said, again, that. Can you imagine Elizabeth II saying, I don't think so. They turn out to be those Jews. Let's do this one again.
Well, get your head out of the way, Jeff. So this guy comes in, he's cut. And this was kind of dumb, so let's do it again. How did it work around? Cut. Oh, great. Now my outfit is falling off again. That's lovely, Jeff.
Do you need a pen or something?
No, it's got Velcro. It should be able to stay. All right, you hit the road, Jack. Settlement money.
Well, and
I said well again because I must say, still get choked up.